doing something like that, and my life is very difficult right now with Jeffrey at home, and things happen last minute, and well, we need to be there for him and whatever that he needs from me and from my husband George. We got married when he was 6 years old, so for Jeffrey, George is like his dad, his real dad. um well, welcome to this live chat with me, and I'm gonna do my best to keep it short and very concise and see how we do this time. But there's things that I really want to share with all of you. And so when we went to Methodist Hospital, when Jeffrey was in ER, and he was taken to Methodist Hospital at the medical center. And as they took us, they took Jeffrey from the ER to ICU. That's when they delivered the news, the doctors, um, that Jeffrey had an diffuse ischemic hypoxic brain damage and that it was severe. What I want to share with you is that also they said that he had multi organs failure, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, and that he was never going to breathe on his own. All prognosis was that Jeffrey was not even going to be able to see. That Jeffrey basically visited that doctor told my husband and I, in other words, plain and simple, this way: if you guys would have the education that I have, this decision would have been made long time ago. And we were in this situation only for weeks, few weeks at that time. Our surprise was that when we're in ICU, almost in the first few weeks, they started, doctor, Jeffrey had 5 teams of doctors. They started to call us to family meetings in a conference, and the case manager was coming and sitting down with us, with my husband and I, and not joking to say this, they were literally forcing our hands to disconnect Jeffrey. But when I am telling you, they were almost hostile. They were harassing us week by week, if it wasn't day by day, to disconnect Jeffrey, giving us zero hope for his life. I know that many of us will have different opinions at this moment if we should have disconnect, no disconnect. However, at that moment, you as a parent are receiving the news. You cannot make a decision from one moment to another moment, that kind of decision. But to give you something else, then you have values, you have beliefs, you have opinions, you see life differently. And in one of the meetings, I told them, in first place, I'm not here that I know. I haven't joined a church. I haven't joined a cult. You're not my pastor, neither my priest. You don't hold and make decisions upon my beliefs. You guys are physicians, and your duty is at all cost to keep my son alive. Period. Hmm. Well, little that we know, they call the ethics committee. It's a long story, but I need to make it very brief. The ethics committee, which, haha, called ethics committee, because same thing, they were just forcing us to disconnect Jeffrey. Okay, well, they were saying because the value, what kind of life value he will have, what kind of value, I mean, he will have for his life to live in these conditions. Well, in first place, they are not the ones who determine that. We are the family, we are his parents, we are his blood. We determine that, not physicians, strangers, organization, a company, a hospital. That, by the way, they all say that they are non-profit organizations, but they are full profit organizations, and we know that. Well, I, I determined the value of life. I told them that I could print an asset that Jeffrey did in college, talking about euthanasia, passive euthanasia, or full blood euthanasia. And Jeffrey did an excellent writing about it. And basically, to sum it down, the whole question that Jeffrey had for everybody was, at what point you are disabled that you lose any worth and any value for society? And who determines that? Who determines that because you don't walk, or because you don't talk, or because you cannot do this or that? At what level then society is going to start determine the worth and the value that you have for them? And that was Jeffrey' point of view. So, but my husband and I got really surprised when we find out that the state of Texas in 1999 passed a law. And there's a story behind this law. But the law is called a Texas Advance Directive Act. And basically, in Texas, hospitals can withdraw life support from their patients in 10 days after they notify the patient's family. Meaning, hospitals in Texas, men, and we're in Texas, have the right to remove from you all, as a wife, as parents, and they take guardianship of your loved one, and they determined with insurance companies how long more you deserved to live. Well, looks like last year the law was a little bit upgraded, and now they need to give you a notification, so you can find a place to put your loved one or transfer your loved one to another place. And now from 10 days notification, now it's a 25 days notification. So, but again, this law should not exist. This law should be completely eliminated from this state, because there no one should have the right. But oh, by the way, let me tell you this. In every place that we have been with Jeffrey, and mind you, we have been 6 places with Jeffrey, we have met many people that their relatives were are in much, much, much better conditions than Jeffrey. And they all share with us that when they were in Methodist or Herman Hospital, they were being forced, harassed, basically the same thing, to disconnect their loved ones. And so this is the practice now. How this never happened with Jeffrey? Well, because God gave us an immense amount of favor and power. And at the end, my husband contact pro-life movement, and they were giving us tremendous amount of advice over the phone. And at the end, they made a phone call. This story just of Methodist Hospital, I can go forever to telling you details in detail, which I will. If you guys would like, let me know, because I can share with you horrors of details, details that will blow your mind away of how cunning they were in multiple moments, many moments, and how smart we were in the way we fought back with them. Well, that's one story. And the other story, I had two stories more to share with you, but I can see that I'm already 11 minutes and 18 seconds. So when we were at Tier, which is a wonderful, wonderful place, and they did tremendously help to Jeffrey to recover. The last almost 3 months, we were here almost 5 months. The last 2.5 months, we were basically, we lost those months of recovery. We were there right after Methodist ICU. So, but what happened was that they changed a feeding tube on Jeffrey because Jeffrey pulled the feeding tube. Well, there's a story behind that also, a horror story, by the way. So anyway, by that time they have changed the doctor that we had at here from the moment we got there, with magnificent physician and Dr. Lin. And then also we have Dr. Cindy Ivanhoe, which she is extraordinary. Both of them, we love them. We thank them for life the same way we thank all the therapists he had. But at last minute, we were assigned to another doctor. That doctor literally goal was to make sure that Jeffrey was already his time in tier done. But when they did this feeding tube change, it came a complication, and Jeffrey became very, very ill. Jeffrey started, well, from the moment he came the surgery really serious and really bad. And I can go to this story in detail because believe me, this story is the core of many things that happened for 5 months. In 5 months, we were trapped within what happened in this story that I'm telling you right now. So at the end, basically, Jeffrey's super ill. Jeffrey's throwing up like crazy. Almost everything that he eats, he throws up. I immediately start saying, is the feeding tube, is the feeding tube, is the feeding tube. Beside that, a physician, the day after the surgery, when things were critical with Jeffrey, a physician came and told me that there was something basically wrong happened at the time that they were putting the feeding tube in Jeffrey's stomach. And like something like they push way more gas into his stomach than what they needed. So that his basically that his colon, they were afraid that his colon were could even blow up. And so it was a lot of things that happened through all this. And but the end of the story is that Jeffrey keeping ill, sick, ill. I was begging this doctor to call an expert gastroenterologist, which he refused to do because this was an easy situation for them to realize. I mean, what was the problem? But I keep saying, it's the feeding tube. Change the freaking feeding tube. It's the feeding tube. So they never get, they never call a gastroenterologist, but they start the papers for to to basically use for us all the papers to that we needed to leave till our time was up. And I keep fighting with this physician, which the fight became very nasty, and basically telling him Jeffrey's not medical stable. Nurses at Tier were coming to us and telling us that Jeffrey wasn't medical stable. I called the Blue Cross Blue Shield and I left multiple messages. I spoke with Blue Shield, Blue Cross social worker. All the phone calls are recorded of what was happening at that moment. And even in those conditions, then Blue Cross and Blue Shield also decided that they were not going to keep approving for Jeffrey to stay at Tier also. So they both kind of became like this. And Jeffrey, in those time of conditions, was forced to leave Tier by the insurance company, by Tier himself. And and I told the doctor, you guys are sending us to this other place that we were supposed to go. All right. Just a rehabilitation center, no hospital, no clinic, nothing like that. Just rehabilitation center. I said, you guys are sending us out there, but in matter of 72 hours, Jeffrey and I going to be in the ER, and Jeffrey gonna be in a critical condition. Yes. So when we got to that place, in less than a little bit more than 72 hours, they were calling the ambulance at 2:30 a.m. We were taken to UTMB Hospital in Galveston, UTMB Jenny Seeley Hospitals, which I have horrors to say just of that place alone. Horrors, meaning horrors to say. And so Jeffrey was critical. I started telling that it was the feeding tube, that it was the feeding tube, to look at the feeding tube. Jeffrey throwing up. Jeffrey has not stopped throwing up for 3 months at that time, at that point. So anyway, we didn't know that the hospital was just a school hospital. So in 2 months that we were there, and Jeffrey literally almost died in that place, we had four teams of barely graduated uh, doctors, which they were all playing to be these genius, so experienced, well experienced physicians. And basically, the one behind, the true physician Jeffrey had behind, was this one. And thanks to this one, Jeffrey, my son, did not lose his kidneys. We had already saved a tear. And finally, they called and they went and called a gastroenterologist, which I screamed for. And they changed the feeding tube. And guess what? It was the feeding tube. Jeffrey basically right away stopped throwing up. And if he threw up a few times after, was for something else. And Jeffrey started getting better and better and better. Last, I can go to two places more, but guess what? I'm in 20 minutes now. So I have ton things to share of details of hospitals. And I'm telling you this, each story, if I just don't go broad, like right now, and I can just stop and share tiny story by tiny story of what happened in ERs and how I fought with doctors, how I basically hang on the bed and told them, I am not leaving this place until you take care of my son, until you do what you have to do, over and over and over and over. There was a hospital that they were not giving him all the water that Jeffrey required every day to keep his kidneys healthy and be out of dialysis. And when I kept complaining, which I was not complaining, to tell you the truth, at that time was begging to come the nurse and give to Jeffrey the amount of water he needed to for his kidneys, because we have fought so hard to save his kidneys and we were going to lose his kidneys. When I was seeing how his creatine was going up, the creatine levels, and how Jeffrey, how ill was getting, finally, when I went to the nurse center of the floor and I said, where is his nurse? Jeffrey needs his water. It's almost 7 p.m., 6:30 p.m., and Jeffrey has had only like 250 mLs of water, something like that. You know what they did at that moment? They called security on me, which did not end well for them, by the way, because thanks God he protected me and protected Jeffrey. But that's how bad these places are these days. And if I go little story by story, if I stop story by story and tell you what happened, what they said, what I said, and everything, and then what was happening with the Blue Cross Blue Shield behind these scenes, and how at this moment, and already like for 5 months ago, they have basically started to say that they are not paying a penny more for Jeffrey because they have expended a portion of Jeffrey, and Jeffrey doesn't have advance. And so basically, Jeffrey needs to go to a nursing home, or if not, oh, well, take him home, which I did. But right now, Blue Cross Blue Shield just denied again Jeffrey to go a very good place, Palm Humboldt, to be with Dr. Di Tommaso there, and they denied it. We appealed, they denied it. And the reality is that if I tell you in details, I have 300 videos how Jeffrey has advanced from the point where he was, how his organs are safe, how they are healthy, the pressure these hospitals place to disconnect your child, how they are irresponsible, unethical, and they literally is like a, or they lazy, or they don't care, or they don't know crap. And but um, at the end, Blue Cross and Blue Shield, because one place that we were in, one of the persons inside administration, big person, manager, show us that basically the answer from Blue Cross Blue Shield was that they're not paying a penny more for Jeffrey. Period. And when I called Blue Cross Blue Shield and asked about this statement, the answer was, I can't believe they told you that. They should have never shared that information with you. So, well, please share your comments, share your heart with me. Let me know if I should or should not share later a tiny one single story of the billions of stories I have, and what is happening right now, and what situation we are with Jeffrey right now, what is happening with Blue Cross Blue Shield, because we need to do something in Texas with Blue Cross Blue Shield. We really need. Bye. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Thank you for joining me.